Hello, Stranger Than Fiction podcast listeners and viewers. Once again, I'm your host on the program tonight. I'm Patrick Meekin. I'm the author of the True Spiritual Warfare books, Nightmare in Holmes County and 225th Street, which tell terrifying true stories of spiritual warfare and paranormal activity and use a biblical approach to haunting and overcoming demonic attack in Jesus' name. Those books are available at Amazon.com. Again, the books are 225th Street and Nightmare in Holmes County. I want to thank you again for tuning into the episode tonight. We have a very interesting guest. The information he has to share is very relevant. I think it's more relevant in this day and age that we live than at any other time. And his name is Ralph Epperson. We're going to be taking a look at the Masonic agenda to overthrow Christianity, and we're also going to be taking a look at the whole New World Order agenda. Ralph is the author of the books The New World Order, The Unseen Hand, and Masonry, Conspiracy Against Christianity. He has written other books as well. I want to encourage you to go to Amazon, type in Ralph Epperson, Epperson, and look at his books. Look at his reviews. The reviews are phenomenal. He is very accurate in what he is saying. He has very deeply researched these topics. And again, these topics are more relevant today than ever before. There's been an agenda to, set up a satanic hierarchy on the earth, going all the way back to the days of Christ, And in the Bible, you'll see these things. There's, it even says that the kings of the earth conspire against the Holy One of God. So this conspiracy goes all the way back. But you'll see, and as far as the Illuminati is concerned, and it really started coming forward in 1776 when the Rothschilds commissioned a former priest, Adam Weishaupt, to come up with the goals and the points that if they achieved them, they would rule the world. And that agenda has been moving forward since that time. So, Ralph, I want to thank you to the program tonight. We have him just on audio tonight, and what a blessing it is to have someone with his knowledge on the program. Thank you for coming on the program tonight, Ralph.
Patrick, I can't thank you enough for your invitation. Let's get into some subjects that need to be said.
Absolutely. So, what got you interested in this subject, this conspiracy, to rule the world and the satanic agenda and all this? What brought this to your attention and got you interested in doing this research and sharing what you found?
Well, I graduated from the University of Arizona and then went to Los Angeles for my first job. And this was during the Goldwater campaign in 1962 or 63. And I joined the Young Republicans, and they were involved with getting Barry Goldwater the nomination so that he could become president. So I joined them, and I met a guy named Jim. And Jim says, "Who are you, Ralph?" I said, "I'm Ralph Epperson." He said, "Do you like to read?" I said, "I hate to read. Here I'm a college graduate. I know everything, right?" So he said, "No, you need to read." And that introduced me to what he called revisionist history, which is a way of saying there's something going on in the world of history. And so I started reading, and it started with one single little book called None Dare Call It Treason by John Stormer, way back in the 60s. He sold like 2 or 3 million copies of that book. And that's what got me started. And since that time, I've been reading, and I've read over 1,700 titles on both sides of this issue. Now, please understand that's because I'm 85. I'm still alive and functioning, and you can see me in the picture. I don't have my hair anymore, but I've still got the knowledge, and I'm still talking about this subject.
Yeah, very interesting. So your knowledge goes very deep, and you've looked at it from both perspectives, and you are able to discern who's telling the truth pretty much and who's not.
Yes. So I've discovered some things. As far as I can tell, with my first book called The Unseen Hand, I was invited to go on a book tour around the country. I spoke in 91 cities in 31 states to, I guesstimate, maybe 10, 12,000 people who paid, by the way, to hear me.
Yeah,
and I did interviews and press conferences, and that got the subject out. And as far as I can tell, I was the first one ever to introduce the subject that the Masons were directly involved in what we're doing in this country, leading us astray. And I think that was very unique. And since that time, I've written the book, as you pointed out, called Masonry, Conspiracy Against Christianity. I found it in their own literature, and it's documented, that book is.
I can tell you, I have seen it in my life, in my personal life. I have seen, it's to the point now where I can look at people's behavior, like in the workplace or wherever. I can look at their behavior and who aligns themselves with who, and who is treated a certain way and who is not. And I can discern, I believe they're Masons. I believe this is all about Freemasonry. And it's a brotherhood where they are sworn to basically outright lie if necessary to protect each other.
We're going to talk about that today. I've got 6 sheets of paper that I'm hoping we can get through as we go through this material, because and these 6 pages will convince you what they're up to. That's all you really need, 6 pages. There are 2 secrets in the Masonic Lodge, and I'm going to reveal both of them briefly, and you'll be able to walk away saying, this guy's got something, he knows something. By the way, the Masons are in deep trouble. When I started this in back 1985, their membership was about 4 to 5 million, and now it's down around 1 million. So they're hurting, but they're still active.
Yeah.
And they're been directly involved in our history for 200 years.
Yeah. Do you think some of those members are just completely under the radar, and so they don't show up as being members, but they secretly are? I mean, it is a secret society, but I'm sure they have membership rolls too.
Yes, well, those membership rolls are never published. We cannot say that the man's a Mason unless he admits it, the Masons admit it, or family members admit it. Sometimes people will die, and in their column in the newspaper about their obituary, they'll say this individual was a member of the lodge in Tucson, whatever it is.
Yep.
And I'll take that because the family's admitting that he was involved.
Absolutely. It is kind of rare to see where they openly admit it. I can tell you this, if you don't know this, to the listeners, I mean, I know Ralph knows what I'm going to say here. He knows exactly this is true, but pretty much every town has, I mean, little tiny towns might not, but the towns they're closest to that are a little bit larger, there's Masonic temples everywhere. And the other thing I've noticed is, when they're meeting because there's so many cars there. Yes. And the other thing I notice is it seems like all the cars look new. They all look like night. I don't think any of them are hurting financially. I think they're guaranteed better jobs, promotion, special treatment, etc.
That's one of the reasons you join.
Yep.
Because you can get benefits from it by your brothers supporting you individually. But
yes.
I met a fellow that later became a Mason but wasn't a Mason, and he said that he started going to his meetings, and he ended up being a 33rd degree Mason, and that he took that on himself. And then he said in his book he wrote that he was disappointed because mostly they're old men, which is true. But I will say this, I'm a member of a campus fraternity and have been since college. And those things are still growing. So I find it hard to believe that the Masons are hurting, but they are by their own admission.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. So
something like 14 of our presidents have been members of the Masonic Lodge. And there's 2 more possibilities. If those are true, then it's 16. That's about a third of all of our presidents have been members of the Masons.
And that is scary because those are people that have sworn alliance not to support our country, not to follow our Constitution, but to support the brotherhood.
Yes, that's true. That's where we are.
And why some people might say, well, what's wrong with that? It's just a fraternal organization. It's just, a bunch of do-gooders, or it's just, people going out and trying to help others. What would you say to that? Like, is there a deeper agenda that is?
Oh yes, of course. That's the public. They want that's the story they want the people to believe, that it's fraternity and they get together and shake hands and have little rituals and play games. But that's not true. There are two classes inside the Masonic Lodge. Those that know the secrets, two of them, it's only two, and the others don't know, and they're still Masons.
Yeah. And some of those people really thought they got in for the right reasons and may even think it's a Christian organization or something like that. And they have no idea what the real agenda is.
You, as a Mason, when you go to the lodge, you cannot mention Jesus. You cannot pray to his name. You're not allowed to do that. In fact, they'll drop you out of the organization. So they worship another God, and I'm going to identify that other God tonight.
Awesome.
Tonight, with quotations from their own literature.
Awesome. So let's kind of get started here. As far as when somebody enters into, like somebody invites them to become a Mason or something like that, do you kind of know, like, okay, this is where it starts and this is what level they enter in and where it goes from there?
Yes. What they do is the man supposedly has to ask, but because they're in trouble, they're now advertising for members. That used to be against their rules, but they're actually recruiting. But so let's say this: the guy has to ask to join, and when he does, the Masons vote him in. He has to be approved, so they have to know a little bit about him and what kind of man he is. And then he goes through 3 degrees, one at a time, and they're what they call, I've forgotten, fellowship, and I didn't write it down. It's not put. But anyway, those 3, when you're through at that level, through 1, 2, 3 degrees, they're separated by sometime 6 months or something. So your first degree, then 6 months later, a second degree, and then I think it's 6 months to become a 3rd degree. And when you're there, you can stop. It's called the color blue lodge.
The Blue Lodge.
You can stay there forever.
Okay.
And whenever they open the lodge, it's always opened as a 3rd degree lodge, even though there's 32nd degree Masons and or even 33rd degree Masons here. Now, there's 2 columns. There's one column called the Scottish Rite, for their connection to the Illuminati way back in the 12 or 1300s, whatever, 1700s.
Yes.
Okay. The Blue Lodge leads to 2 opportunities. You call the Scottish Rite. That's where the Illuminati went after they were exposed way back in the 1700s. Many of them went to Scotland and started the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. There's 29 more degrees, so 29 plus 3 equals 32. And then on top of that, then on the other side, there's a thing called they call it York Rite, Y-O-R-K, and that's supposed to be the Christian evidence that they don't do. I can't find anything out them, although I believe I have. I won't get into that; it's a whole other story. But I think I found out where they are. But I have not been able to find any books on them written by their own members, whatever. Now, there's an auxiliary thing between the 2 called there's the Shriners. Shriners are Masons. You have to be a 32nd degree or a 13th degree York Rite to join. But that's where they play the games and the clowns and the little cars being driven in parades, etc. And that's supposed to be the fun place. And that's what people do. They go there.
So most of the people are in like the first 3 levels in the Blue Lodge, and they're just getting benefits for being part of the Brotherhood without really going deep and knowing what the organization is really about.
Let me give you a little interest. Whenever you see a car owned by a Mason and you're following it, on the left side of the trunk, there's an emblem, probably maybe 6-7 inches around or square, whatever it is. And whenever you see that, that's because he's telling the policeman he's a Mason.
Absolutely, I've seen it.
And if he goes by, the Mason sees that, he's more than likely not going to give his brother a ticket. Isn't that called a punishment for crime? So watch for that.
I have seen that. I have seen that repeatedly, and no question about it. I have seen that repeatedly. I've seen it on the freeway. I've seen it in parking lots. And so here's the other question is, though, and I already know the answer, but I want you to kind of confirm this. That leads me to believe what you just said, that you're way less likely to be pulled over or charged or whatever by the state patrol or the police if you have that emblem. That leads me to believe that there's a lot of Masons in the law enforcement.
That's true. That's true. In fact, I've seen boards, various police departments get a badge from some other city, and they share those and then put them all up on a wall. And many of them have the square and the compass.
Yeah.
The square makes for the architects who build the buildings of the world.
Yeah.
They're masons. Masonry means they're building blocks, etc. And so you get the square, which is a 90-degree angle, and then you get a thing you can turn, that compass, and that makes circles or semicircles. And
I will put some. I will show that image in post editing. I will show that image so the viewer and the listener can see what you're talking about. I know exactly what you mean. And I have heard that if you want to move up, if you're in law enforcement and you want to move up, one surefire way to do it is get into Freemasons. That tells me, that's a broken system, because now you have, favoritism. You have people that are getting paid by taxpayer dollars to do a job that they may not even be the best person for the job at all. They may not even be qualified for the job, but they're getting it because they're a Freemason. Lots of shady behavior, even the law enforcement violating the laws themselves, and getting a free pass because they are involved with the Freemasons.
Now, let me point out to you, I was in Florida during this tour, in City A in Florida, and a young man came up and said he's working for the government at some Army or Air Base, Navy, and many of those men are all not Masons, so he's not a Mason. So he wanted to transfer and move to another city, and he found out that that's where all the Masons are. And he since he's not a Mason, he can't get a job in another city because all the that's where we are. That's the unfortunate part, because normally the Masons don't exhibit their membership either with a pin or a sausage or tie or something. So we have. It's not important. We're not talking about what they believe in. It's what the Masons believe, and certain members of the Masonic Lodge understand a truth that we're going to expose as we go slow by slow in the steps through the Masonic Lodge. And when we get that done, you're going to understand there are two layers. One that doesn't know the symbols or the truth, which I'm going to reveal, or you know it and then you pass on. Jesse James, the famous outlaw, was a 33rd degree Mason. Jesse James lived to be 103, and that's my fourth book you didn't mention, but that's okay. Yeah,
I saw that. So are you saying that he did not die in the manner that they're saying? Pat Garrett supposedly shot him and killed him?
No, that's Billy the Kid. This is Jesse.
Oh, Billy the Kid. I'm sorry, wrong guy. I apologize.
Jesse killed, I'll just make it very brief. Jesse killed another man, told the widow to tell the sheriff, call the sheriff, and I'll hide, and then we'll talk. And so when the sheriff shows up, says the man on the floor is Jesse James. Jesse James lived under a major, I want to entice people to read the book or even watch the DVD on me.
Yeah.
Jesse James lived to be 103 years old and was a major player in our past. I believe it's the story of the century, but there's no interest.
Wow, I'm interested. I mean, that's super interesting.
Let's do a talk show on it.
Oh, yeah,
it'll blow your mind.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting. So
okay, let's get past that. I only did that to show you some people were Masons, and when they become Masons, they get special favors. In fact, this man was a major player in our government.
wow.
So let's end with that. Okay.
Well, you know, I had someone, and I had already heard this before. I had heard that in the military, if you want to move up in the military and become an officer and different things, they pretty much want you to be a Mason or forget it. And then I met a guy, and I was talking to a guy who had been in the military a long time, and he straight up told me that right to my face. And he said, you know, they're in all of everything in the military. You if you want to get promoted, you have to be one. He said he was telling me all this weird stuff that they're into as far as when they really get into it, different things they do even in their homes. He said, you know, you're pretty much not going to become an officer if you're not willing to become a Freemason.
Yes. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. But fortunately, the membership is in decline. So it's really this is not really necessary to know about the Masons, because if they're playing a small group of them are maybe high up in this conspiracy that I've been exposing for 60 years. It's possible some of them have gotten up there, but they're not up there because they're Masons. They're willing to do what they all believe in with the other secret societies that are hiding as well.
Okay.
Okay, now let's get into the Blue Lodge.
Okay.
Let's go to the first degree. The man, they bang up, they have a guard outside, and he bangs on the wall and someone says, "Who goeth there?" or something like this. And he says, a man who's prepared to become a Mason, so they let him in. Now they take it. I'll just say it this way: they take his
Blindfold.
A blindfold. And those 3 degrees, he doesn't open it till the very end. Now, so then he is walked around in circles with the other Masons, whispering in his ear or talking to him, or making him walk across water and a stream, etc. And then he ends up in front of I'm going to call him the president of the lodge. He goes before the president, and he's there with the vice president, number 2 man. And so number 1 says, "What is it you ask for this initiate?" And the vice president says, light, like a light bulb. Okay. Light. Okay, in the second degree, the same thing, except he learns more little secrets, and they answer, the second man says, more light. And then in the third degree, same thing goes on, he gets the same question, further light. And then at the end of that, all of these men who were gone through the initiations up to masturbation got put together. And this is where you learn the true nature of deity. That's actually said to these men. Now notice, you don't learn the true nature of deity in your church or with the priest or a rabbi or a cult. It's going to learn it only in the Masonic Lodge. That's very, very important. That tells you there's something beyond the Master Masons.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to get into. It's the important part.
Yes. So it truly is a religious organization, whether they admit it.
Oh, absolutely.
And the very fact that they call their meeting place a Masonic temple says that, honestly.
Our oldest lodge in Tucson is called the Masonic Temple here in Tucson, Arizona, where I live.
Yep.
Okay, now, so let's talk about this true nature of the deity. And we're going to tell you that it's found in the book called Morals and Dogma. Now, this is interesting. They used to have a book called Morals and Dogma that they gave away to everyone when you got up like the 14th degree. So I bought one. I'm not a Mason. I want to make very clear. I'm not a Mason. I've never been a Mason. I didn't sneak in and steal books or hide them or go to, put a mask on and appear to be somebody else. I've never been to a Masonic Lodge ritual, never, but I read their books. There was an author, a publisher up in Montana, I think it was, selling these books, and I bought them all. I got all those books. I've read 14 different Masonic writers to make sure I'm getting the broadest to know. Okay, now, who is this light? Where does it come from? It's revealed in Morals and Dogma, written by Albert Pike on page 321. This is the #1 book written. It was given to every Mason until the 1980s or something like that, and they took it out because it's very hard to read. It's got small print. It's a big, thick book, 500-600 pages. But here's what he says. Albert Pike, the leader of the worldwide Masonic movement, wrote this book for the Masons. And on page 321, it says, quote, Lucifer, the son of the morning, S-O-N, not U-N, son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light? Doubt it not. That is learning the true identity of deity. You're supposed to make that connection. You said, gee, I remember him saying we're going to learn the true nature of deity, and then we find out who the deity is. Yeah. Now that's concealed. You got to read the book to find out. No one's going to tell you that. And so I read the book twice. I've got 2 copies of it. Yeah. So Lucifer, who's Lucifer? That's the devil.
That's Satan.
The devil. We're talking about devil worship. Yes. Inside the lodge.
Yes.
These men, we'll talk about those who don't listen, but if you listen and figure it out, you are going to deny the God of the Bible and Jesus Christ. And if you're a Muslim, you're going to deny Muhammad, and you're going to worship Lucifer, Satan, the devil. Page 321. I made that point in my illustrated lecture in 1985. As far as I know, I was the first one ever to bring this subject up publicly. And I'm not a Mason, but I read their book.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
now,
I had heard that, that Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, that he actually declared it, That's amazing. And he actually comes right out and says it. Now, at what point are they allowed to be told, if you're a Mason, at what point are you allowed to be made aware that is really who you worship?
Well, we're going to read that they mislead you with clues. They don't connect that. That's something that you read in the 14th or 15th degree inside the book. You learn that, and then you say, oh my goodness, I remember them saying in my 3rd degree that I'm going to learn the true nature of deity. Now, wait a minute, maybe I'll put those 2 together, and the true nature of deity is that Lucifer is God. That's what the group supports. They worship Lucifer. They pray to Lucifer. They sing psalms to Lucifer in their rituals. Yeah. Now, here's a quote from a book called Legenda, which is the degrees in one book by Albert Pike from the 4th through the 32nd. 29 or 28 more, I guess. 28 plus 4 is 32. Mm-hmm. Here's what it says on page 5 of the 32nd degree. It's broken down by degrees, so you read about the 3rd degree, 4th, 5th, settling your 18th, 20, and then the 32nd. In the 4th degree, you were made to understand the true nature of deity. In other words, if you figured it out, boy, we want to talk to you. But if you don't, I'll cover that in a minute. They want you to be smart enough to connect all of this stuff. I learned that there were 3. I'm looking for light. The light bearer is Lucifer. I'm going to learn about the true nature of God. And then it talks about Lucifer's the light bearer. I put that all together, and suddenly I'm worshiping Lucifer.
Yes.
And you've got to deny Christ.
Yes.
Now, here's why. They hide the truth. They don't say that Lucifer is our God. They make you believe that because you learn the true nature of deity, which is a God, and then you learn that Lucifer is that deity in the 14th or 15th degree. This is from page 781 of Morals and Dogma. If you reflect, my brother, notice the word is reflect. You've got to think about this, ponder, study it, my brother. You will no doubt suspect that some secret meaning was concealed in these words. That draws it all together by saying, oh, now I see My friend who was with me on my journeys through the rituals. He brought me to the point where I asked for light, more light, further light, and now I learned that that's the true nature of deity. Is a sentence. It doesn't even connect you to those three lights. And then later on, I learned that Lucifer's the light bearer. So that's where we get this connection to Lucifer inside our. Okay, now, as I said, they conceal the truth, and Pike is a master at it. This man was a brilliant man. He wrote very confusingly. It's very, very hard to read Morals and Dogma, especially in the small print and also in the language of what he did in 1891 or 1897 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to read, but that's the point. If you stay with it, you'll learn the second secret, which is the key to the Masonic Lodge. Okay, here's what he wrote on page 53 of the 32nd degree. Now that's in this book called Legenda that reveals the rituals from 4, one at a time, up to 32. So this is the last chapter of the book, chapter 32, page 53. Masonry permits the utterance of false interpretations. In other words, we're giving you clues. Think about it, ponder, reflect, which serve the purpose of misleading the ignorant. In other words, you're not going to see it if you're ignorant, whom it is desirable to lead astray. So we say this, and if you get figured out, we don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Now, you could go ahead to the 32nd and pay your dues and go to their meetings and everything else, but you still don't know what it really is. Okay, here it is. This is now the final of the 6 pages. Then we can get into some other related things about the lodge.
Okay.
This is in the Magnum Opus by Albert Pike, pages 17 and 18. Now, this is during their ritual. I got to explain what these men are going through. They're usually 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, and they're not pulled with blindfolds. I want you to know they're carrying swords. Swords are an instrument of death, but these men have a sword on their side. So they now are going to take a vow with a sword, which means I'm promising that if called upon, I will remove the party that said it, or whatever it is. Pike wrote on pages 17 and 18, Magnum Opus, we have not hesitated to make known to you the true purposes of our order. If you reflect, my brother, you will learn there is some secret teaching in these words. Now put that together. What does it mean? I see 3 skulls on a table, one side by side. And the first skull is wearing a wreath. I think it was acacia leaves welded together. Caesars used to wear it, and in the Olympics they used to wear something like that as a sign, I'm the champ, I'm the leader, whatever it is. So that's one of those 3. He represents Jacques de Molay. They don't say that, but that'll be given later probably. The second one has a crown of government. A crown. The skull is wearing a crown. And the third is wearing, oh boy, hold on, I'm stuck.
It's okay.
Not a crown. What is it? Okay, I can't think of it. There's something. Okay. No, it's not. Anyway, he's wearing a different. Oh yeah, it's a Catholic. The Catholic priests or popes. 3-tiered hat on the top of their head.
Yeah, like what the Pope wears.
Yes, right. I don't know. Yeah. I didn't know what you said.
What the Pope wears. That hat that almost looks like a fish turned upright.
It's like a beehive, yeah.
Yeah.
On top. That's the third. So you see a wreath, a crown, and this Pope. And by the way, Pike does identify that as being a Catholic pope, not a Christian pope or belonging to the who knows who. It's a Catholic pope. So you have taken a vow to destroy not Jacques de Molay, but government and religion, Christianity, religion. That's why I wrote my third book called Masonry, Conspiracy Against Christianity. I put the subject in the title. That was by design. You pick up the book, it slams you. Oh my God, the Masons are out to destroy Christianity. I got to read this book. I'm a Christian. No, they're not reading the book. The book is not a big seller. I can't get people to even read it. I've taken that book to churches here in Tucson and said to the pastor, what do you know about Masonry? I don't know anything about him. That's what he tells me. And I leave the book. And I'll come back in a month or so. Did you read it? No, it's still on my desk. I've had that happen in 4 churches here in Tucson. Good-sized churches. Not some guy with 10 members or even 100. These are 400 or 500, maybe even 1,000. In other words, the pastor is a Mason.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I can't prove it except by what they've done in 3 specific Christian churches that I actually became a member of to join to talk to the pastor. And I took the book into his room and gave it to him and said, you need to read this. If you don't know, I don't know anything about the Masons. Well, it's still on my desk. Now that tells me an awful lot. It does. Yeah. It's not confirmation, but wait a minute. The title is The Destruction of Christianity by Masons. And in other words, there are members in his own body that are there to destroy his church.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care. You tell me that unless he's a Mason.
Yeah. And here's the thing. In this time we live, what you're doing, what you're revealing truth is you're exposing darkness, okay? That is spiritual warfare. Exposing the lies and bringing the truth is a huge part of spiritual warfare. They don't want anything to do with it. It's all about, a social club. It's all about like a country club mentality of entertainment. They don't want to teach the truth. They don't want to talk about anything controversial, even though the Bible itself is very controversial. But why would a pastor not want to at least understand that himself and be aware of it, and also to share with his congregation why, the church should not accept Masons. It's that simple. And why would you not want to share that with your church and make them aware? Because you're responsible for them.
Exactly. That's right. He's the shepherd, right?
Well, so would you say that, and I've seen old documents where some branches or elements of the Catholic Church renounced Masonry and said Catholics shouldn't be Masons, but that's on the surface. Would you say, like deep down in, it's all of this is working together?
Oh, absolutely. Now this is a broad subject. Please understand, I didn't find this until probably 10 years ago, but there is one conspiracy at the very top. All of the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Morgans and the governors and they're being told what to do to this country. Now, that is the problem. And that group that I just mentioned, I'll give you the name. It's called the Great White Brotherhood. Now, I'm the only one that I know of in my group of circle. I got to meet many of my fellow authors in this field as I toured the country and spoke. I did get some time once in a while to talk in the church, but I think probably after I talked, they didn't want me to say it. But I'm saying that this whole thing that's going on, even in America, is a battle between good and evil right now. And it's going on because the Masons are behind it. They're doing what they can to destroy Christianity. How do you do that? You tear the family apart. You tear the businesses apart. I just learned that one of these people that are suing Trump, they said, you let You let the protesters stand outside unmasked and within 6 feet of each other, but not the Christian churches or the synagogues. Now, wait a minute. Why did that happen? Because that person, the one that led that governor, that senator, senator didn't do it, but the mayor, he had to be a player someplace because he's allowing the terrorists, the people burning down buildings to do that, but not the people who love Jesus or even their Jewish faith. They can't do that.
You're absolutely right. Black Lives Matter, they were allowed to congregate. They were allowed to do all this stuff. They were allowed. I know police officers who had to, with kid gloves, monitor the Black Lives Matter quote unquote protests. I call them riots because I'm being honest about what they were. But they didn't have to wear masks. They were allowed to congregate within 6 feet of each other, blah, blah, blah. Yet they shut down the Christian churches, and the pastors didn't have the guts to say, too bad, I'm going to follow what my Bible tells me, not what you say. And then the other thing is a liquor store was considered an essential business. Liquor stores were open.
Oh, yes, of course.
But yet, oh no, you can't go to church. And, and I'm convinced that this whole thing was a testing ground for when they start implementing the mark of the beast. And, the World Economic Forum just announced within the last 2 weeks, they already have the chip ready to go, and it goes in your hand. And no one can buy or sell unless you have that chip.
Yes.
And they want to come up with a worldwide digital currency, and you have to take it. And I'm going to tell you the other thing is, clear back in the 1990s, I said this stuff, and my friends thought I was crazy, but I was like, no, I'm not crazy. You wait and see. But this chip, they've had that around since the 90s, and it has a tiny lithium battery, and that battery recharges at certain temperature differentiations. Like if the temperature changes a certain amount of degrees, that battery recharges, so it keeps working. They did studies and found the 2 areas of your body that have the greatest temperature differential throughout a given day. And guess what they are? Your right hand and your forehead. It's not your left hand, it's your right hand or your forehead. So go to the book of Revelation, chapter 13, and it talks about the mark of the beast. No man can buy or sell save he who has this mark. And it says, here is wisdom, is the number of a man, and that number is 666. 666. But in the King James Bible, very clearly says it goes in your right hand or forehead. It doesn't say on. I've had people tell me, oh, no, it's going to be some kind of high-tech electronic tattoo barcode. And I said, no, it's not. It's going to be a chip. Trust me. Well, now the World Economic Forum is saying it's a chip, and we have it ready to go, and we want to do it now.
Yeah.
I believe the big event that's going to happen where they're going to force this is going to be the rapture of the church. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I suspect, because that's going to create worldwide chaos when, however many people are gone. They're gone. Children gone. People gone. And it's going to be worldwide chaos. You'll notice they're bringing up this whole UFO agenda. Now the government said, oh, aliens are real. Well, they're not. They're demons. But the government is lying to us about everything. And it's because they're part of this agenda that you're talking about. They're Freemasons, they're Luciferian. And if you're a Luciferian, your number one goal is to help establish basically the reign of the Antichrist. And all of these things have to be done to establish that. And the Freemasons have been involved from the beginning, pretty much. Once they were infiltrated by the Illuminati, they have been involved. But, in this day and age, what we are seeing, it's like we're seeing scripture right before our eyes. And I don't know what sign has to still happen before the rapture can happen. I don't know. I think probably the gospel has been preached to the whole world now. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. And I think that is what we are seeing. And you pointing these things out, and you've been pointing these things out, clear back into the 1980s?
I started this in the 60s, And then
Wow.
by the time I was reading and studying, it's when I was able to teach at a community college. I
Yeah.
actually got paid by the state of Oregon to teach a class on conspiracy. And
Wow.
my students sat there. None of them asked a question. They just showed up and made notes. And when I got the dean called me in after the thing was over and said, read these papers. And the paper said, this guy's got the ability to make complex things simple. Most of the students said that. And I said, what is education but that?
That's right.
Here's something you could do. Take your index finger like this and slowly go to the area between your eyes, and you'll feel the tip of your finger before it gets there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the gland that they're going to head for. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's called pituitary, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. By the way, let's talk about this. Now, I'm going to show you what they call the lion's paw. The Masons have this as this, well, it's the Illuminati and all of them. They go like this, extend your fingers out, and then slowly curl them underneath. Only the first knuckle. And when you get there, tuck it into the palm, and then bury the thumb. So you're going like this. Okay?
Yeah.
Look, if you can see that, you
Yeah.
can see the first knuckle, the second knuckle, the third is buried, and then the tips, and then the thumb is inside. Then you place that over your heart, either outside or inside.
Yep.
When you do that, you're indicating that you're a member of the ancient mystery religion of Babylon, and it's a sign the Masons use as well. And I won't tell you because it's another story. But one of our candidates during the election of 2016, actually did that twice. When they lined up all the Republicans, this particular senator stood there like that twice. He was giving the lion's paw, which was a sign to the other initiates, I'm really one of you. You better do it for me. I'm serious.
Yeah.
The greatest example of that is Napoleon. Napoleon showed with his palm inside his coat.
Yeah.
And every time you see a painting of Napoleon or walking, and even when they picture him in a movie, he's walking around just as if he's got heartburn. It's not heartburn. He's the ancient mystery religion.
Yeah, I tried to do that as you were saying it, just to try to demonstrate, but it's kind of hard to get it all on camera so people understand. But he's talking about them putting the hand, crossed over the heart and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you know who else did that? Came out for a news conference, stood there in that position for probably, several seconds, making sure it was seen. It was Anthony Fauci.
Was who?
Anthony Fauci.
Oh, Fauci, I've never seen that.
Yes, Fauci did it. It is. This whole thing has been a demonic, satanic agenda.
Please get back to this. It's not this. It's this.
Okay.
This is called the lion. No, it's like a palm of a lion walking like this.
Yeah.
That's got to go inside. It's either inside or on top of you, but it's over the heart, which means I'm dedicating my life to this ancient mystery religion.
Yes. I have heard that even if a Mason, let's say a Mason commits a crime and a police officer shows up who's not a Mason and he's like, I really don't care if you're a Mason, I'm arresting you. If that person gets to court, they will give signs, hand symbols in court, because if the judge is a Mason, the judge is obligated to basically acquit them.
Yes, exactly. Just like back on the back of your car, on the left-hand side, as you see the car ahead of you, on the left side, there's a big emblem, it's about that big, and it's all beautiful. They're gorgeous. They wear well because they've been there for 27 years, have that thing on the back of their car.
Yeah.
And generally, they'll see the policeman as he walks by, he touches that just to say, I'm a Mason. I'm going to tell this guy I'm a Mason. And maybe the driver is watching in the rearview mirror to see that he does that. Yeah. And that's probably why he does it. He says to him, I'm one of you. If you're a Mason, don't worry. Your ticket's taken care of.
Yes. Yes. I was thinking that when you said it, they're going to sit there and watch in the mirror and see if he does it. Another one is they are now in the state of Ohio. I've seen it repeatedly. You can have that emblem put right on your license plate. It's right, and it's on the left-hand side of the plate, just like what you described, but it's right on your license plate.
I'll be darned. Well, that's what it's for.
Absolutely. I mean, it's unbelievable. But you figure you're not going to have justice when you have this. These people are in our police, they are in our military, they are in our government. State, local, and federal levels of the government are these people. I got to ask you this. I know if you look at Fraternal Order Police's symbols, they have several symbols that are the same as the Freemasons. Do you think there is a connection there?
Oh, absolutely. As I just said, the sheriff of, I'll just use Pima County. He's a sheriff, and he's got a badge, and the badge was designed by the Arizona, or the county of Pima, and so he wears it. And he gets those badges from other police departments and sheriffs and send him, and he puts them on a board, and they're all like this. And you can see them side by side about which ones have got the square and the compass.
Wow.
Yes. Well, how much time do we have left?
I'm at 50 minutes. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I mean, this is very informative. Well, man, it's intriguing.
Something to delay on. If you give me 5 minutes, I'll make it 5 minutes.
You go as long as you want. However long you feel comfortable, I'm good.
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask you something really quick?
Okay.
When these people get into the Masons and they start going through these levels, and I'm aware that they take blood oaths. In other words, they get in and they say, I will never disclose what happens in these meetings.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. That's something I didn't cover.
Yeah, they take a vow. And the vow is, I will never disclose what happens in these meetings and the secrets of the Freemasons, whatever. And then they take a blood oath. And the blood oath is, and if I do, you can cut my throat from ear to ear. You can, cut me open and pull out my innards and burn them. I mean, all this stuff. And there's always blood oaths. Jesus said, do not swear by an oath. And he also said that let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. In other words, say yes or no. Don't swear by an oath. And then he said anything more than this is evil. So that means demonic, in my opinion. So the reason I'm saying that is I have seen over and over and over Freemasonry is a massive problem in deliverance ministry. People that maybe were never involved in Masonry, but their ancestors were, or their parents were, or whatever, get demons. They have curses brought over them because of the vows that their ancestors or fathers or whoever took. I met somebody just a few months ago. I spoke at a church, and I had an individual wanted to ask me some questions. And this individual was explaining, all this. And I said, is there anybody in the family, situations that were going on in their family? And I said, is there anyone in the family that was a Mason? Yeah, my dad was a Mason. My mom was a Mason or a Eastern Star. I was a Rainbow Girl. And I'm like, you need to renounce all of that, And I basically led this, helped them write out a prayer of renunciation to try to undo the damage that was brought on by taking those vows and oaths. It's amazing. And I've ran into that before during deliverances. People that had, I was a Rainbow Girl and my parents were Masons, the whole family's Masons, and they have so many demons. And it was interesting. The one case, there was a lot of stuff there, lots of demons. And when we were all done, I said, I'm going to pray over you one more time and make sure there's nothing still there. And as soon as I started praying, another one manifested. And I knew exactly what it was. And it was the spirit from the Masonry in the family. We cast it out, But it was amazing how powerful and how evil this stuff really is.
Listen, I would like to, if you want me to, lay a blockbuster on you.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Please listen, because I have proof of this. The Masons, as an organization, was directly involved in the assassination of John Kennedy. Hold on. Let me give you some clues. November is the 11th month of the year, November the 22nd. 11 plus 22 equals 33. Yeah. Now, when Kennedy's car came across like this, they went east and west. The car turned and went north, and then made a swing to the left. Now, if he had gone the other way, he would have passed by a statue of Charles something Bannerman, the name of the park. What's the name of the place they were assassinated?
Dealey Plaza?
Say it again?
Dealey Plaza?
Dealey. Charles Bannerman Dealey. It's a statue of 8 to 10 feet high, standing on a pole. He's a 33rd degree Mason. He owned the Dallas Morning News in the 20s or 30s. That Dealey Plaza was the commemoration, a park to designate the first Masonic lodge in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Secondly, it's underneath the 33rd degree northern, east, and west. So, plus, they wanted to get him at 12:30 when the sun was at its height, and they did. They got him at 12:30. He was assassinated. The Masons were directly involved in that.
I believe that.
The chief of police I've got documented was a 33rd degree Mason.
Yeah.
There's a couple of I can't think of them. There were major. In my documentary on the Kennedy assassination, I document 6 different groups. Only the one we're talking about, the Masons. Now, the Masons themselves weren't involved, but these Masons were fulfilling the vow that they could attack the Catholic Church and the government together. Kennedy was the first Catholic president. That's
right.
Why the Masons were called in, take a shot at him, tell us where. He picked the location, the time, and the date. Isn't that interesting? Nobody's saying that except Ralph Epperson.
That is amazing. And you know what's interesting too? Like I've done a lot of research on the Kennedy assassination. I would have never known what you just said, and I have done a ton of research, and I would have never known that. That is unbelievable. But I'm going to tell you something. There's a gentleman who claims he was the shooter from the fence on the grassy knoll. His name's James Files. And he said he has so much proof. He said the reason Kennedy's head exploded was he said he used a special load, which was a mercury-infused bullet. So when it hit, it exploded. That's why his head, exploded the way it did. The one thing Files said, they said in an interview, he was in prison for other stuff because he was involved in the mafia and everything else. But they said, who was behind this? Who was at the top of this? Was it LBJ? And he said it went way higher, something to the effect of it went way higher than LBJ. So here's the thing. You have to, if he's right, okay, LBJ is the vice president of the strongest country in the United States. The only person, if our government is really the way they claim it is, the only person more powerful than him was JFK. So if it went higher than LBJ, then that tells you there is a conspiracy. It is, the Illuminati, if you will. There was a lot more evil people involved in that than what, anybody sees. And the whole story with Oswald is, it's complete. It's so far-fetched, We
got beside maybe we should talk because we were talking about the Masons, but I have proved Oswald did not shoot the president, period. Yep. He did not shoot the policeman, period.
Yep. Absolutely. He didn't. He hadn't even fired a gun that day. He had not. No. There was no, they did the paraffin test. He had not fired a gun. He was, the guy was set up as, it's what he said, I'm the patsy. Well, but it's interesting to kill him. Who would they have used to kill him? Would be that chief of police you just mentioned. It was a Freemason. Because how did they get Jack Ruby down there? Walk right up while he's being transported. Walk right up, uncontested to shoot him. That had to have police involvement.
This is a big story. Very soon, we're going to learn more about the Kennedy assassination than we have ever learned ever in one spell. Somebody's going to reveal that, and let's just leave that for another day.
Yes, yes. I really appreciate that you shared all that. I never knew that about the Masons and that connection, but that makes so much sense. That's unbelievable.
He took a vow with a sword. So they didn't use a sword; they used a shooter. And Oswald wasn't the shooter.
No.
He was a patsy. Let's go to that next question. How did Oswald know that car was going to turn on where he got his job? He got that job in October the 16th. That's a month before the shooting. How did he know that? The plans hadn't been, the road hadn't been planned yet. No. How did Oswald do that? That's another question, because once you find out about that, that opens up this whole thing. There's major players in this assassination. Let me ask one question. If you're going to assassinate somebody, why do it in public? Why hire 20 different people, etc.? We're going to find out very soon who did all that work. Very soon. Someone's going to reveal it, and I know who it is.
I am not saying this is true, but, and I don't know if you know anything about this gentleman I'm going to mention, but there was a guy who came out in the 70s, and I think some of what he was saying was nonsense and he was making it up, but I know he was heavily involved in some bad things before he allegedly became a Christian. His name was John Todd. And some of the stuff he said, I'm thinking, okay, I think that was false. But he did say some things that definitely proved to be, he was telling the truth. And he had claimed at one point, now is this true? I don't know. He had claimed at one point that JFK had become a born-again Christian before that happened. And that was another issue. I don't know if that was true.
Yeah.
But he claimed that. And it's like, you know, if you look at all the stuff they released on him and all the dirt, it certainly it'd be hard to believe. But again, who gave us all that information? Who told us, oh, he had this affair and that affair? You know, I always believed, yeah, it's true. He probably did, whatever. Yeah. But in reality, it's like, okay, go back and look how bad they hated him and wanted him out of the way. And where did all that information come from? It came from the very people that were involved in killing him and covering it up.
Well, we got aside. We need to talk about the Kennedy assassination, but also we need to talk about who's going to reveal it. It's very, very interesting. Big things are brewing right now in America.
Yes.
Things are going to change very soon. I'm not going to give any revealed information that I have. It's not secret. It's just we should have talked strictly about the Masons. They're not a major player, so we don't need to spend time on it. I'm telling you, once you know that they directly were involved in the assassination of John Kennedy, that fulfills the 32nd degree oath. You take a sword in your hand and vow to destroy government, Christian government, John Kennedy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's why they called the man that's going to reveal this. He knows who did this, and that man told the Masons, you can do this if you want. You pick the location, the date, and the time, and we'll fulfill it for you, and then bring the body down there. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that way. Bring Kennedy down to you, and we'll take him out.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Very interesting.
Once you get open with Emerson, suddenly a whole panacea of new stuff to talk about. I've got 29 DVDs, 29. That's almost 30.
Yeah. You know, that's the thing. These things all do tie together, and they do all, they're relevant today. You know, you got to wonder, how would the world have been different if JFK was not assassinated, you know? But we have these people that are, you know, they're involved in a lot of big things that the Masons are. And honestly, I think like even the entertainment industry, sports, all these things.
Mel Gibson has said that he's working on this is a side that I think we should end. This Mel Gibson is working on a 4-part, I don't know what that means, 4 quarters, and it'll be 4 different movies, or one movie. It takes all day to watch, but he's going to bring Hollywood down forever. Shut it down.
He needs to be very careful because they're not gonna, they're not gonna want that to happen.
No, but it's gonna. If Mel Gibson gets it done, it's gonna bring this nation into a real battle to learn about what's been really going on.
Yeah,
and that's very good. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, Ralph, I want to thank you. This has been very informative. I probably need to have you on again. So much.
How often?
Probably need to have you on as a guest again.
How often do you do these? Once a week or every night, or?
No, I try to put them out on average about once a week. I have a very grueling work schedule, so sometimes I get a little bit less. Sometimes I get a lot more. It just depends, But there's definitely a lot. You have a lot of knowledge, and again, your books. Let's just say the names of them again, and they are available at Amazon.com. You have the New World Order book, which people need to read this. You need to be informed what is going on around us. Okay, but the Unseen Hand, which is also going into who's really calling the shots, pulling the strings, however you want to say it. And then Masonry, Conspiracy Against Christianity. And then what's the Jesse James book again? That's about him being a senator or something?
Yes, that's what it's called. It said Jesse James, U.S. Senator. Jesse James, the outlaw, sat in the Senate for one term, 1901 to 1907, under an alias. Jesse James, the famous outlaw, lived to be 103. Now you say, wait a minute, I want to see that. There's a 4-hour DVD on the internet. Just search Jesse James lived to be 103. Sit down and watch. I'll blow your mind about the Old West. Wow.
That is really interesting. So Jesse James, U.S. Senator, that's another book.
That's the book, yeah. But I would suggest just pass that, because that was the preliminary to making the 4-hour DVD. That 4-hour DVD, you can just sit there and learn. Every time something comes up, it's going to be something you've never heard before. That's the major story of this century, and I can't get any interest in it. Okay, well, I tried.
People are willingly ignorant. But we're going to try to change that by putting out truthful information. But Ralph, I want to thank you for being on the program tonight. Again, I'm going to put up your book covers and whatnot, and where to get them on the video and everything. But it's been awesome talking to you. Very informative. These are things people need to know. Like I said, I guarantee wherever you live in your town, there's likely a Masonic temple. There's likely people on every level of government, local, state, federal, heavily involved in the Masons, calling the shots in your police departments, in your sheriff departments, in the military, so it is relevant and it does affect everyone. So again, thanks again for coming on tonight, Ralph. We'll set up another interview here in the future. Okay.
Well, you're very kind, Patrick. I appreciate it. Thank you, and God bless you.
God bless you too. To the listeners, again, thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Patrick Meekin, on the Stranger Than Fiction podcast. I am the author of the True Spiritual Warfare books, Nightmare in Holmes County and 225th Street, which are both available at Amazon.com. Until next week, good night and God bless.